To the outside world, the Gosselin family from the show Jon and Kate plus 8 appeared flawless, 8 children, a large home, and the kind of endearing chaos that made for perfect television. But behind the polished smiles and curated moments, a far more troubling reality unfolded. Now, Hannah Gosselin, daughter of Jon and Kate, is bravely breaking her silence. After years of holding back, she's stepping forward to reveal the truth of what went on when the cameras stopped rolling. This is not celebrity gossip, it's raw, unfiltered reality. From secret journals to legal fights and a carefully managed media image, what Hannah shares now is something the world needs to hear. Kate Gosselin, according to Hannah, forced the children to take sides, and she picked the wrong one. What once appeared to be a familiar custody drama to the public, a daughter leaving her mother to live with her estranged father, was dismissed as teenage rebellion or manipulation. But that assumption, Hannah says, couldn't be further from the truth. Years later, she's choosing to share not headlines or accusations, but something more powerful, honesty. It didn't dominate news cycles or social media trends, but it changed everything for her. In revealing what she endured, she challenges long-held beliefs about her, her father, and even her mother. Once the truth is understood, the real question is no longer why she left, it's how she stayed so long. Hannah didn't abandon her family, she escaped from the version of it that was slowly destroying her. She didn't run away, she ran toward the only parent who wasn't shouting. Off-camera life was worse than anyone imagined. The show framed their home as a whirlwind of controlled chaos, with 8 kids and a dedicated mother trying her best. But Hannah recalls not chaos, but control, so rigid that she couldn't even use the bathroom freely. Everything was scheduled around the show. Scenes were rehearsed, lunches were staged, car rides were planned, and even the most basic tasks became performative moments for the camera. There were days when emotions weren't captured, they were manufactured. If someone cried, they were told to do it again so it could be filmed. Not upset enough? Try harder, with more tears. This wasn't guidance, it was coercion. The children weren't simply reacting to life, they were living it on cue. And if a take was ruined? That's when Kate's shouting began, not from a director, but from their own mother. Off-screen, the nurturing tone disappeared. If a sibling froze during a line or didn't smile on demand, filming stopped, voices were raised, and the aftermath was swallowed by silence. This wasn't discipline, it was training. Hannah insists this behavior wasn't rare, it was the norm. She believes the production crew was fully aware. She says they saw what was happening, but instead of stepping in, they protected Kate. Final footage was carefully edited, Kate's outbursts cut, rough scenes softened. By the time it aired, what looked like harsh parenting was repackaged as reasonable discipline. According to Hannah, what the world saw as structure was really fear. The wholesome family brand became sacred, and protecting that brand meant burying anything that didn't align. A child not smiling for a promo photo? Not just a bad mood, a liability. And liabilities had to be fixed before cameras rolled again. Hannah recalls one moment vividly, a sibling flinching during a scene. No tantrum, no tears, just a missed cue. The response was instant and harsh, they were yelled at until they broke down. Only then were they gently comforted, just enough to film a usable shot. This part, the fear, the breakdowns, the loss of autonomy, never made it to the screen. Not in promos. Not in behind-the-scenes footage. What the audience saw was a happy family. What the kids felt was performance. Every smile was practiced. Every meltdown was orchestrated. And everything that didn't match the narrative was erased. One of the most disturbing memories Hannah shares involves a journal. According to her, Kate maintained detailed logs on each child, not to track growth or sweet moments, but to document misbehavior, disobedience, and even moods. These journals, Hannah says, were less about parenting and more about justifying punishments. It wasn't until she was older that she fully understood the implications. In one entry, she discovered her name listed alongside the word rebellious, a word she didn't understand at the time, but came to realize would define how her mother treated her. To Kate, Hannah explains, any attempt at independence or resistance was an act to be punished. These journals were not harmless records, they became weapons of control. When the cameras turned off, the notes turned on. They were used to discipline, to manage, and ultimately to dominate. In later years, when family issues spilled into courtrooms and media headlines, those same journals became part of legal proceedings. They helped support Kate's portrayal of herself as a misunderstood, strict mother fighting to maintain order. Inside those journals, Hannah wasn't seen as a child, she was treated like a case file. Every act of defiance was recorded. Every outburst became a checkbox on a list of faults. Her childhood was dissected, cataloged, and treated as something to fix. There was no room for freedom or mistakes, only expectations of perfection. For Hannah, discovering that word rebellious marked more than a memory. It was a realization that her identity had always been something she had to fight for. She wasn't just seeking freedom, she was resisting a system designed to suppress her. Her mother's notes didn't reflect who she truly was, they served to justify breaking her spirit. They told the public I was troubled, Hannah says. Here's the truth. When Hannah left her mother Kate's custody, the media wasted no time constructing a narrative that portrayed her as unruly and rebellious. Headlines painted her as a troubled teen struggling with behavioral issues. But Hannah insists this version of her story was entirely fabricated, a media-driven attempt to discredit her. There was no truth to the claims of dysfunction. Instead, the story was shaped to fit a larger agenda. According to Hannah, things only intensified when she moved in with her father, Jon. The press shifted its storyline from one of a young girl seeking stability to one of an uncontrollable child. Tabloids rushed to label her as troubled, despite the fact that she had never been given any diagnosis, nor had she received therapy or support. She was offered no help, only exclusion. The media's depiction wasn't an honest reflection of her life, but a convenient explanation for her departure from Kate's home, casting it as rebellion instead of a desperate attempt to find peace. This portrayal clashed starkly with Hannah's lived experience. She had no history of serious behavioral issues, certainly nothing to justify the extreme labels thrown at her. The media's story relied on anonymous sources and speculation, not professional assessments or facts. These labels became tools used to dismiss and delegitimize her choice to leave an environment where she felt trapped. Beyond distortion, the media narrative also isolated her. She had no emotional support to help her cope with the fallout, and the weight of public opinion added a stigma she didn't deserve. Rather than being met with understanding, she was sidelined and reduced to tabloid headlines. Her efforts to reconnect with her siblings were met with silence, not out of anger, but fear. Loyalty to Kate and the family's image was so deeply ingrained that speaking out felt dangerous. Anyone who stepped outside that image risked being vilified. Alone and unsupported, Hannah had to adjust to life with Jon while the public continued to see her as undeserving of empathy. But her truth, she says, is simple: she wasn't rebellious or difficult. She was trying to survive in a situation that had become intolerable. After leaving Kate's home, Hannah tried to reach out to the siblings who stayed behind. What she encountered wasn't emotional distance but a heavy, deliberate silence. After weeks of trying, the only message she received said, "I can't talk about this. Please stop." That was it. No exchange, no comfort, just a door shut. Hannah believes this silence is not natural but orchestrated. Some of her siblings, she says, are still bound by legal or verbal restrictions, non-disclosure agreements or warnings, making it clear they are not to speak about family matters under any circumstances. She alleges that Kate's team has long enforced such control, even extending it to babysitters, friends, and household staff, who risked legal consequences for speaking publicly. That environment of fear bled into public appearances as well. One striking example was a Today Show interview featuring Kate and the then 13-year-old twins, Mia and Cara. The interview was intended to be light and upbeat, but when the girls hesitated to respond, Kate snapped at Mia, "Use your words. This is your chance. Spit it out." She quickly tried to cover for them, saying they were fine, while Mia, clearly uncomfortable, replied that her mother had already said everything for her. Even the show's host, Savannah Guthrie, later admitted the moment felt unsettling. To Hannah, moments like that weren't unusual. They were reminders of the pressure to present a flawless, happy family image, even when it contradicted reality. Whether on TV or in private, the unspoken rule was clear: don't challenge the story. Hannah doesn't think her siblings remain silent out of loyalty. She believes they are afraid of the consequences if they speak up. Whether those consequences are legal or emotional, they've been taught that silence equals safety. She also remembers how the family's internal dynamics were used against them. Kate, Hannah claims, kept meticulous notes on each child's behavior, not just for legal proceedings but to build cases against them in real time. That constant surveillance created a climate of pressure and fear. Even now, some siblings may still carry the fear that speaking out will cause harm to themselves or others. Hannah understands why they don't reach out, but that doesn't make the silence any less painful. One of the hardest things she's had to accept is that growing up together doesn't mean staying connected. For the siblings who remained, layers of legal and emotional pressure have made open communication nearly impossible. When the family narrative is tightly controlled by a parent with access to media, lawyers, and a history of calculated public messaging, telling the truth feels dangerous. Hannah doesn't blame her siblings, she worries for them. She hopes that one day the fear will lift and they'll remember that someone else went through it too, and made it out. Until then, their silence is not just heartbreaking, it's revealing. Because when siblings can't even say "I'm okay," the issue isn't distance, it's control. And that control, she says, still lingers. Hannah also opens up about her relationship with her father, Jon Gosselin, sharing a rare glimpse into the candid conversations they've had away from the public eye. Their talks weren't rehearsed or full of excuses, they were quiet admissions from a man who knows he made mistakes. Jon didn't rewrite the past or deflect blame. He told Hannah plainly that he should have protected her, and the others, sooner. He admitted that he stayed in the public eye too long, believing he could handle the media attention, the fame, and the custody battle. In the end, it consumed them. He regrets not walking away earlier, not taking the kids out, not turning off the cameras. Back then, he was scared, not just of Kate, but of the courts, of public backlash, and of losing access to his children. He knows he didn't fight hard enough, and that regret still weighs on him. Hannah doesn't see him as a hero. He didn't always get it right, but she respects that he was honest. He never lied about who he was or what went wrong. While the world turned their family into a media circus, Jon ultimately chose honesty over appearances. He gave up trying to control the public narrative and instead chose to focus on earning back the trust of the children he could still reach. She recalls asking him once why he didn't take Kate back to court, why he didn't fight for custody of all 8 kids. His answer wasn't dramatic, it was weary. He explained that he didn't believe he stood a chance, that he was emotionally and financially exhausted, and feared that pushing further might make things worse for the children who remained in her care. She didn't like his response, but she respected it because it was honest. Their relationship today isn't built on ideal circumstances, it's grounded in conversations like that. It's shaped by his remorse for not stepping in sooner, for missing the warning signs. He acknowledges he should have known better. But he also understands that when he did finally show up, willing to listen, to be truthful, that was enough to begin rebuilding. Compared to the silence she received from others, his transparency stood out. She says, "He's not perfect, but he never lied to me." And in the end, that honesty became a form of protection, not in the past, but definitely now. She recalls how producers looked away as everything around them fell apart. Boom microphones stayed in place, the cameras never stopped rolling, and the adults meant to safeguard them, producers and crew, remained motionless as the children broke down on set. Emotional outbursts, punishments behind closed doors, even physical discipline all occurred within sight of the crew, yet the red light kept blinking. She remembers the detached professionalism, how, minutes after being punished or humiliated, they were reset to film cheerful scenes. One moment, they were crying in a bedroom, the next, seated at a kitchen table, pretending to laugh over pancakes. No one asked if they were okay. No one intervened. Everyone just kept filming like it was normal. What hurt more than the punishments was how the show distorted the aftermath. It wasn't truthful or documentary style, it was carefully staged. Conflict was edited out and replaced with scenes of hugs or birthday celebrations. The producers weren't passive observers, they were orchestrating a false version of their reality. She says she tried to step away from filming after being punished, but it never mattered. The show always came first. They'd assure her, "We just need 5 more minutes, or we won't use this if you don't want us to," but they always used it. Saying no too often was labeled as having an attitude problem. Even the house didn't feel like home. There were lighting rigs in the kitchen, weekend call times, and rooms arranged to suit camera angles, not comfort. She compares it to living in a dollhouse, where nothing was in their control. The walls were thin in every sense, structurally and emotionally. Everyone could hear when someone was crying, but no one ever came to help. Not the producers. Not the assistants. Everyone was part of the production. What viewers thought was charming family chaos was, behind the scenes, a tightly controlled illusion built on silence and forced cooperation. Her voice grows tighter as she gives her final verdict. This wasn't reality TV. It was a prison set. And the adults who were supposed to protect us, the producers, chose to keep filming instead. No one ever said cut. No one ever said enough. Now, she's finally telling her truth. "I'm risking everything to tell you what really happened. It's time," she says. People think she ran away, but she didn't. "I ran to the only parent who wasn't screaming." That's how Hannah Gosselin broke her silence, not in a courtroom, not through a legal team, but through her own voice. This wasn't a dramatic custody battle or some salacious tabloid scandal. It was something far more painful, the quiet reality of a daughter forced to choose, then punished for choosing wrong. For years, the public narrative was that Jon Gosselin manipulated Hannah, that he pulled her away or twisted the story. But that's not what happened. Hannah wasn't stolen or coached, she made a conscious decision. A decision that took years to form but only seconds to act on. That decision was about survival. The truth is now undeniable. Life in Kate's house wasn't just noisy or intense, it was manufactured. Jon didn't storm in or rescue her in a dramatic moment. He was simply there, present, steady, and visible when she finally needed a way out. He didn't become the villain or the savior. He became the only option that felt like relief. Leaving Kate's house wasn't just about moving, it meant leaving nearly everything she knew behind: Leah, Joel, Alexis, Aiden, Mady, and Kara, 6 siblings who had once shared her life. By 2021, Hannah and her brother Colin were living full-time with Jon. A judge formalized it, but emotionally, it still felt unresolved. Jon admits he hasn't spoken to the other children in years. His door remains open, but no one has walked through it. That's something Hannah carries with her, the peace she gained and the price it came with. She doesn't blame her siblings. She doesn't pretend to be a savior. But she wants the truth known. She didn't ruin the family dynamic, she just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. Years of silence cost her dearly: panic attacks, sleepless nights, and a deep inability to trust anyone. The emotional toll was immense. Her voice had been suppressed for so long that the only path left was to confront it. The hardest part? She had to stay silent to protect others, to preserve the image they wanted the world to see, while her own truth was buried. Now, there's no legal team or PR representative behind her. Just her, a phone, and the unfiltered truth of someone who's been silenced for too long. She's done protecting people who only ever saw her as a character in their narrative. She believed for years that staying silent might protect her family. She hoped avoiding confrontation would avoid damage. But that silence only made room for others to rewrite her story, to erase her pain and replace it with a false image of a troubled girl. They never wanted her truth. They just wanted her to act the part. But she's not acting anymore. The reality is, no one cared about her trauma when the cameras weren't rolling. Every time she cried, every time she was punished or pressured into a family moment, the producers were there with their cameras, but when the scenes ended, so did their concern. They looked away because her real emotions were too raw, too disruptive. Now, the truth isn't theirs to control. She's telling it herself. And she's done protecting the people who harmed her. "If this ruins me, fine," she says. "But you need to know what they did. It's not about revenge, it's about revealing the truth. About finally speaking what so many were afraid to admit." The cost of her silence wasn't just emotional, it affected her mind and body. And while staying quiet may have felt safer at the time, she now sees it was she alone who bore the burden. That silence ends now. She's ready to let the world see what was hidden behind the cameras. Her days of protecting others at her own expense are over. This is her truth, and no one gets to rewrite it. Who do you believe in this family story? Share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video, subscribe, and share it. See you next time.